Embarrassing the commentators on Ion Sports. Yo, when I say they were disrespecting Caitlin with this list, look at this list, man. Caitlin Clark has more points than Paige Bueckers, more assists than Paige Bueckers, more points than Olivia Miles, and more assists than Olivia Miles. And they don't have her on the list. They have these players instead on the list.
It is insane to think about how Caitlin Clark will likely never get MVP in the W because it's voted on by the media. Most fans think that it's decided on by the league or logically stats, but it isn't. MVP is voted on by a panel of sports writers and broadcasters after the regular season. And who is without a doubt the best player in the league right now? Caitlin Clark.
These better numbers than these players, while dealing with restriction minutes, like minutes restrictions. She's dealing with the coach not liking her like that. Like, I don't know what's going on with this organization, but she's finally coming around and allowing Caitlin to play with her shooting guard and allowing Kelsey.
Welcome back to WNBA Hoops TV. Today, we're diving into a story that has basketball fans talking everywhere. Because one announcement, or more accurately, one ranking, has ignited a firestorm across the basketball world. Caitlin Clark, left out of the MVP top 5. Within minutes, social media exploded. Fans flooded comment sections. Former players weighed in. Sports debate shows turned the topic into their lead story. Some called it disrespect. Others argued it was completely justified. And suddenly, one simple MVP ranking became one of the most polarizing conversations of the WNBA season. But here's what makes this story so fascinating. How can a player who has transformed television ratings, sold out arenas across the country, and produced highlight after highlight suddenly find herself outside the top 5 in the MVP race? Was this a sign that voters had grown tired of the hype? Had injuries changed the landscape? Were other stars simply putting together stronger seasons? Or was something much bigger happening beneath the surface? Because the MVP award has never been about popularity. It's never been about jersey sales. It's never been about social media followers. It's supposed to reward the player who delivers the most valuable season on the court. And that's where today's story becomes far more complicated than the headlines suggest. Because depending on who you ask, leaving Caitlin Clark outside the top 5 is either completely understandable or one of the biggest snubs in recent WNBA history. But before we can understand why this debate has divided the basketball world, we have to go back to where the MVP conversation truly began. When Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA, expectations reached a level rarely seen for any rookie in professional basketball. She wasn't simply arriving as the number 1 overall draft pick. She arrived carrying the momentum of one of the greatest college careers ever witnessed. She shattered NCAA scoring records. She packed arenas from coast to coast. Millions of viewers tuned in to watch her every move. By the time she officially stepped onto a WNBA court, the league had already changed. Ticket demand surged. National television schedules expanded. Teams moved games into larger arenas whenever Indiana visited. Corporate sponsors recognized an opportunity unlike anything women's basketball had experienced in years. But while fans celebrated Clark's arrival, another group watched with cautious perspective. The league's veterans. Players who had spent years building the WNBA into one of the most competitive basketball leagues in the world. Superstars like Aya Wilson, Breanna Stewart, Nafisa Collier, Alyssa Thomas, Jewel Lloyd. These weren't newcomers trying to prove they belonged. They had already established themselves among the game's elite. And none of them intended to surrender the spotlight simply because a rookie had entered the league. That created one of the most fascinating storylines in recent basketball history. The league wasn't choosing between old and new. It was witnessing both generations compete at an extraordinary level. As the season unfolded, Clark experienced exactly what many basketball experts expected. Moments of brilliance, moments of frustration, games where she looked unstoppable, games where experienced defenses reminded her just how demanding professional basketball can be. Every assist generated headlines. Every deep three-pointer spread across social media. Every turnover became another national debate. No player seemed to exist under a brighter spotlight. Yet while cameras followed Clark almost everywhere, the MVP race quietly began taking shape. Night after night, established superstars continued producing remarkable performances. Aya Wilson dominated both ends of the floor. Breanna Stewart remained one of basketball's most complete players. Nafisa Collier delivered elite consistency. Across the league, veterans were building resumes based on winning, efficiency, leadership, and production. That's an important distinction. The MVP award has traditionally rewarded sustained excellence across an entire season. Availability, consistency, impact on winning, statistical production, defensive value, leadership, all of those factors influence voting. Then came another twist. Clark's injury. Missing games changed more than Indiana's lineup. It also affected the MVP conversation. Historically, availability has always played an important role in award voting across professional sports. Even legendary players have seen MVP campaigns weakened after missing significant time. That isn't unique to basketball. It happens in nearly every major league. Still, many fans believed Clark's overall impact extended beyond traditional statistics. They argued she had transformed the league's visibility, boosted attendance, elevated television audiences, inspired unprecedented national attention. Could those contributions outweigh missed games? Others strongly disagreed. They insisted the MVP should remain focused on basketball performance over an entire season, not popularity or business impact. The debate quickly became one of the biggest discussions in the sport. And then the rankings were released. Clark wasn't in the top 5. For some fans, that was proof the voters had ignored one of basketball's biggest stories. For others, it reflected the reality that several veterans had simply produced stronger all-around MVP seasons. Both perspectives carried passionate supporters. But perhaps the most interesting question wasn't whether Clark deserved a higher ranking. It was what the reaction revealed about the league itself. Just a few years earlier, MVP discussions rarely dominated national sports conversations. Now, millions of people were passionately debating every ranking, every statistic, and every vote. That alone demonstrated how dramatically the WNBA had grown. Yet one mystery remained. Was Caitlin Clark truly being overlooked? Or were fans witnessing one of the deepest MVP races the league had ever seen? Because the answer would reveal much more than a simple list of 5 names. It would reveal how the WNBA measures greatness in a season unlike any other. As the MVP debate intensified, one thing became impossible to ignore. This was no longer just a discussion about statistics. It had become a debate about what the word valuable actually means. For some fans, the answer seemed obvious. Caitlin Clark had helped transform the WNBA into one of the biggest stories in American sports. Attendance surged whenever the Indiana Fever came to town. National television audiences reached record levels for many of her games. Merchandise sold at an unprecedented pace, and millions of first-time viewers suddenly became WNBA fans. From that perspective, Clark's value extended far beyond the box score. But MVP voters have traditionally looked at something different. Historically, the award has been based primarily on on-court performance over the course of an entire season. Points, assists, efficiency, defense, availability, team success, consistency. Those factors have shaped MVP races for decades. And this season was no different. That created an interesting divide. Fans focused on Clark's historic impact on the sport. Voters focused on the entire body of work produced by every candidate. And as the season progressed, several veteran stars continued putting together extraordinary campaigns. Night after night, Aya Wilson dominated both ends of the floor. Her scoring remained elite. Her rebounding anchored her team. Her defensive presence altered games. Every week, she reminded everyone why she is considered one of the greatest players in the world. Meanwhile, Nafisa Collier continued delivering one complete performance after another. She wasn't simply scoring. She defended multiple positions. She rebounded. She created offense. Most importantly, she consistently helped her team win. Breanna Stewart also remained in the conversation. Her experience, leadership, and ability to impact every area of the game made her one of the league's most respected stars. Around the WNBA, there was no shortage of MVP-caliber performances. That's what made this race different. It wasn't a competition between one superstar and everyone else. It was a battle among several of the best players in professional basketball. Still, every new ranking returned the spotlight to Clark. Sports television debated the list. Podcasts broke down advanced statistics. Former players shared different opinions. Some believed Clark's injury had significantly affected her MVP chances. Others argued that even before missing games, the competition had been incredibly strong. Availability has always mattered in award voting. A player can perform brilliantly when healthy, but missed games often become part of the evaluation. We've seen that across every major professional sport. The WNBA is no exception. That reality frustrated many Fever fans. They pointed to Clark's remarkable passing ability, her long-range shooting, her leadership despite enormous expectations, the way opposing defenses built entire game plans around stopping her. Those qualities don't always appear in a traditional stat sheet, yet they undeniably influence basketball games. At the same time, supporters of other MVP candidates emphasized another point. The WNBA had exceptional talent long before Clark arrived. Veteran stars had spent years building the league, winning championships, collecting awards, representing Team USA, elevating women's basketball through sustained excellence. They believed this MVP race should continue rewarding the player with the strongest overall season, not simply the player generating the biggest headlines. Neither argument lacked merit. In many ways, both reflected different definitions of value. Then came another fascinating development. Instead of hurting interest in the league, the MVP controversy generated even more discussion. Fans who rarely debated basketball strategy suddenly compared advanced metrics. Television analysts examined efficiency ratings. Social media users watched games involving teams they had never previously followed. Ironically, the disagreement itself became another sign of the WNBA's remarkable growth. Because passionate debates happen when people genuinely care, and millions of people clearly cared. For Caitlin Clark, however, the outside noise never changed the challenge in front of her. Every game still required focus. Every possession demanded execution. Every opponent viewed Indiana as one of the biggest games on the schedule. That level of attention brings pressure few young athletes ever experience. Yet Clark continued embracing the responsibility. She understood something many veterans learn over time. Awards are meaningful, but championships define careers. Every great player eventually reaches a point where individual recognition becomes secondary to team success. Whether Clark captured MVP votes this season or not, her long-term goal remained much larger. Building a winning franchise, competing deep into the playoffs, establishing a legacy that extends beyond one award. Still, one question remained unanswered. As the regular season entered its most important stretch, could Caitlin Clark produce one final statement strong enough to change the MVP conversation? Or had the race already slipped beyond her reach? The answer would not only shape the award voting, could define how this unforgettable season would be remembered. The MVP conversation had reached its most intense moment. After months of debate, statistics, highlights, and non-stop discussion, the question surrounding Caitlin Clark was no longer just about numbers. It was about impact. Could a player who transformed attention around the WNBA, carried the pressure of being the league's biggest spotlight, and helped bring millions of new eyes to women's basketball, still make a late push strong enough to change the minds of MVP voters? Or had the race already moved in another direction? Because the reality of the MVP award is that it has never been decided by one single factor. It is a combination of production, consistency, team success, leadership, and the moments that define a season. And that is what made Caitlin Clark's journey so fascinating. From the moment she entered the league, every game became an event. Every performance was analyzed. Every difficult night became a national conversation. And every impressive moment created another chapter in a story that was much bigger than basketball. But inside the locker rooms and around the league, the MVP race remained a competition against some of the greatest players in the world. Players who had built years of dominance. Players who were producing elite numbers. Players who had their own arguments for why they deserved the highest individual honor in the sport. That was the challenge Caitlin faced. She was not simply competing against opponents on the court. She was competing against expectations. The standard placed on her was unlike almost anything the WNBA had seen before. Every turnover was magnified. Every missed shot became a headline. Every victory became proof that she belonged. And through it all, Clark continued to show the same qualities that made her one of the most talked about athletes in basketball. Confidence, resilience, and the ability to create moments that people remembered. But as the MVP discussion entered its final stage, another question began to emerge. Maybe the biggest story was not whether Caitlin Clark would win the award. Maybe the biggest story was how much the conversation had changed because she was part of it. For years, the WNBA had searched for ways to expand its audience and reach new generations of fans. Then Caitlin Clark arrived. Suddenly, arenas were selling out. television numbers were reaching new heights. Young fans who had never followed women's basketball were suddenly learning the names of players across the entire league. And while MVP voters would ultimately decide the award based on basketball performance, the impact of Clark's presence could not be ignored. Because history does not always measure greatness only through trophies. Sometimes it is measured through influence, through moments that change the direction of a sport, through athletes who create opportunities for those who come after them. And that is where Caitlin Clark's season became bigger than any ranking. Whether she finished inside the MVP top group or not, she had already accomplished something rare. She had forced the entire basketball world to pay attention. She had created conversations about the WNBA that reached far beyond traditional fans. She had brought new energy into the league. And she had shown that the future of women's basketball could be even bigger than anyone imagined. The MVP race may have had a winner, but Caitlin Clark's story was still being written. Because this was never just about one award. It was about the beginning of a new era. An era where women's basketball demanded more attention. An era where young players could dream bigger. And an era where one rookie's arrival reminded everyone that sports can change in an instant when a truly special talent appears. The debate surrounding Caitlin Clark's MVP chances will continue. Fans will argue. Analysts will compare statistics. Supporters will point to her influence. Critics will point to the competition. But years from now, when people look back at this moment, they may not only remember where Caitlin Clark finished in the MVP voting. They may remember that this was the season when everything started to shift. Because sometimes the most important players in sports history are not only the ones who win the award. Sometimes they are the ones who change what the award means. And Caitlin Clark's impact on basketball may prove to be much bigger than one season, one ranking, or one trophy. Her journey is far from over. And if this chapter has shown us anything, it is that every time people think the story is finished, Caitlin Clark finds another way to write a new one. Stories like Caitlin Clark's remind us why basketball is about more than statistics, awards, and rankings. It is about moments that inspire millions, challenges that test greatness, and athletes who push an entire sport forward. Whether you believe Caitlin Clark deserved to be higher in the MVP conversation or you think another player earned the spotlight, one thing is impossible to deny. Her impact on basketball has been historic. If you enjoyed this documentary, make sure to like this video, subscribe to WNBA Hoops TV, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next deep dive into the biggest stories in women's basketball. Share your thoughts in the comments. Where do you think Caitlin Clark should have finished in the MVP race? Thanks for watching WNBA Hoops TV. We'll see you in the next documentary.